Today we will be reviewing your submissions for the composition task from the specimen paper, and we will start with Mirza's submission. Mirza Zakir, let's see how you've done. Okay. Do you, Mirza, remember what the topic of this one was?
Narrative writing.
Yes, but which topic?
I don't remember.
We're clear on what we're doing. Okay, so the narrative had write a story in which something unexpected happens at an important school event, and then write a story which that includes the sentence when I saw the photograph, the memories came rushing back. Which one of these two is it?
Second one.
Second one. When I saw the photograph, the memories came rushing back. Okay.
Yes.
Alright, so first thing I'm doing is that out of the way, I'm doing the word count. Now, the word count for the dieted writing and the composition is not as strict. Right? It's 350 to 450 words. Right? You've got 448 words, so you are definitely at the upper limit and still within the limit. So that's good. Now let's see how you've done. Right? If you write something that's 350 words, that also works obviously, and if you do go over the limit, you write more than 450, you write 500, maybe 550, maybe even 600 words, right? If you're that fast and efficient, I would say, and focused in your writing, the examiner will check it. The examiner will read it, they will grade it, they will check it. So you're not going to lose marks just because you've written more. And I've explained why you'll lose marks. Writing more, you'll be spending more time on this task. So if you're suffering from time management, that is a cause for loss of marks because you won't be able to complete your task, or the quality will go down. You'll go into repetition, or you go off on a tangent in your writing, and it won't be focused, right? And so that would affect the quality. So those are the areas that would affect the grade that you get, not you know, not the word count itself. Okay. So I was busy packing my things and tidying up every corner, getting ready to leave our old house and move into the new. There was, right, so the starting is good. It catches my attention, right? It starts off with an activity. There was the old box inside the storeroom cabinet and was named useless, and we all were not sure what it was. I asked my mother about it, and she replied with, "It must be an old box containing trash or something. Let's forget about that and rush to pack your stuff. The bus will be here soon." At that moment, I was just curious about what's inside, and I decided to come back tomorrow just to see what was in that box. Okay. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious old box, even though we had left that box in our previous house. Now, I I hope you've noticed up till this point a point that I had raised for your previous work with directed writing, and that is repetition. So that box, old box, the box, right? You're constantly going over that phrase. Our former house was near our current one, so I decided to go there and have a look for the last time. And when I will be there, I can get rid of that curiosity to go care about what was inside that old box. I plan to pay a visit to our former house in the evening with my friends as we decided to stop by our new place to meet me. We went there cycling, bicycling. Uh, I unlocked the door of our previous house. Now here's another repetition, right? Our old house, our new house, right? So once you set the context of what you're talking about, you don't need to keep repeating it. I unlocked the door of our previous house and directly went to that dusty box which had been in the house forever, giving a strange, familiar vibe. I opened that box, my friends leaning over that box, curious, wondering what would be inside that box. The box held a fold filled with photographs. And when I saw the photographs, the memories came rushing back. Okay, so there's the line we're looking for. It was a photo album from my college days. I was briefly overwhelmed by a sense of nostalgia. I like that line. The memory had become crystal clear, the old days, picnics and fun. I wondered where it had disappeared to. All of us friends took turns going through the photos, laughing and recalling every single moment of that picnic, locking the teacher in the bathroom and getting scolded by both the principal and the teacher, but it was all fun. Every single photo in that box brings our memory and laughs back. It was just a matter of time, and we didn't even realize that it was so late. We were supposed to be home before 8. I grabbed the box, and all of us headed back to our homes. I showed all the photographs to my mother and said, "You're about to wipe that memory from my mind out of nowhere." Huh. And she laughed, saying, "It was your stuff you should have taken care of. How would I know it held your college memory?" Okay, so there is a bit of work to do here. Let's get started with that. I was busy packing my things and tidying up every corner, getting ready to leave our old house and move into the new one. So that's a good line. There was an old box inside the storeroom cabinet named useless. And let's put that in inverted commas. You can use single inverted commas or double, really up to you. And we all were not sure. And we were not quite sure what it was. I asked my mother about it, comma, and she replied, uh, and she replied, "It must be an old box containing it must be an old box containing trash or something. Let's forget about that and rush to pack your stuff. The bus will be here soon enough." And we that. At that moment, I was just filled with curiosity about what's wrong now? Curios. Okay, right. Curiosity about what was inside. And I decided to come back. Now, because right, a narrative is written in the past tense, so instead of saying tomorrow, you would say, and I decided to come back the next day just to see what was in it or inside. Let's do in it. Right, now here we have to really work our way into right, the next day. Okay, let's do this. Let's remove this. I couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious old box even though we had left. In fact, our former house was near our current one. So I decided to go there to have a look for what we can do is we can add the next day over here. So the next day, I decided to go there to have a look, and satisfy my curiosity about what was inside that old box. I plan to pay a visit again. So now we want to keep repeating house and house and house. We've already set the context. So I plan to pay a visit in the evening with my friends as they had decided to stop by a new place to meet me. Okay, now we went there by cycling. Either you can remove this line completely if you want to add this particular detail. Instead of like saying we went there by cycling, you can say we cycled there or we rode there on our bicycles. So we rode there on our bicycle. By I unlocked, you unlocked the lock. Okay, so you unlocked obviously the door. I unlocked the front door and directly made my way to okay made my way to, let's add the store room cabinet. Then we can remove this bit. We can capitalize that for a new sentence. Oops. The dusty box gave a strange, familiar vibe. Now again, I opened, oh, sorry, I opened it. I opened it, my friend's leaning over. Again, we don't need that. Curious, wondering what could be inside. The box held a I believe you meant to say folder. You could say folder, you could say album, right? Filled with photographs. And when I saw the photographs, the memories came rushing back. Okay. It was a photo album from my college days. I was briefly overwhelmed by a sense of nostalgia. Okay, the memories became, so I'm going to change this. Memories became crystal clear. Instead of a comma, I'm going to use a hyphen. The old days, picnics, and fun. I wonder where it had disappeared to, all of us. Now, because as you already mentioned that you were there with friends, all of us took turns going through the photos, laughing and recalling every single moment of that picnic. Again, instead of a comma over here, I'll use a colon. Locking the teacher in the bathroom and getting scolded about the principal and that teacher. But it was all fun. Okay. Every single photo in that box brought back memories. Right, so it's past tense. Brought back memories and laughs. Remove the comma and we don't need the back again. It was just a matter of time. Instead of saying it was just a matter of time, we were so engrossed in our walk down memory lane, we didn't even realize it was so late. Over here, I think I'll use a semicolon. We were supposed to be home before 8 p.m. I grabbed that box and all of us headed back to our homes. I showed all the photographs to my mother and said, you want a comma before quotation marks? You are about to wipe that memory from my mind. And she laughed, saying it was your stuff and you should have taken care of it. How would I have known? It held your college memory. Okay. Now, we were at 448, I believe, and despite all the changes we've made, I am confident we are still within the word limit, possibly under 450, right? Under the actual limit actual word count we started with, but still within 350 words, right? Above 350 words. Uh, Mirza, you were following along. Anything you would like to, you know, say about the corrections I've offered?
Yes.
Anything? Like anything you agree with, anything you want to say, any opinion you'd like to share about this?
No.
Right. So again, I would suggest you rewrite this on your own, removing all the parts I've cut out, and just with the corrections and the improvements and the suggestions, and then compare that to your original writing. See how that reads and feels to you. Does it feel like an improvement? Hopefully. And right at the same time, when you're doing that, you learn, right? So you see what changes were made, why they were made, and how they affect the quality of the writing. Okay. All right. So with that, I will return it to you. Okay. That's going back. And next, we'll take a look at Haran's submission. So, turned it by Haran. Okay. Narrative writing, topic number 5. So that's the same one. When I saw the photograph, the memories came rushing back. Okay. Zoom in and do a word count. And okay. Haran, is this like a complete submission?
Yeah,
It's only 281 words. So you're 70 words below the minimum, right? And so if you put in a submission like this, then uh, well, again, right, in a proper Cambridge paper, when you put in a submission like this, even if it's well written, you would end up losing marks for right, lack of content. Sorry, I was distracted for a moment. Secondly, okay, I'll read through this, and right, there's no paragraph in. So it looks like a summary. So you definitely want, and remember, right, even in your actual paper, leave a line, right? If you're running out of space, which you probably won't, but if in case that happens, you can ask them for extra sheets and they will provide them to you, right? Uh, so leave a line to uh, show that it's a new paragraph. That is the safest and surest way. Okay. I had recently moved to Arizona. I don't remember much about where I used to work or with whom I used to live. I had gotten a job at a software house within the first month of moving here. moving here. Okay. I was living here with an old lady, and she always used to tell me that she found me outside the hospital when I was a child, and how she has treated me like her own daughter. She also had a daughter who sometimes used to visit her. I never really spoke with her that much as she was more of an introverted person. Whenever she visited us, I don't know why, but I felt sick in her presence. However, things were going smoothly and I was super happy in my life. One day, that lady brought an old rusty box to our home. She told me not to open it, and I just nodded and promised her not to do that. Whenever her daughter visited our home, they both used to go to the basement and ask me not to open the door unless they allowed me to. This continued for over a month, and now I began to feel a bit suspicious. So one day I decided to finally go to the basement. I waited until the lady left the home to meet one of her relatives. I finally gathered the courage and went in there. I had gone numb after seeing what was there. There were dead body, there were dead bodies of my parents and siblings. There was a photograph that was covered in blood. I took it in my hands, and when I saw the photographs, the memories came rushing back. Oh my God, that's such a twist. Okay, right? All, memory loss and sketchy, and then there's blood and bodies, and you're ending on a cliffhanger. Oh my. Okay, so that was unexpected. Now, if you had, I'm going to suggest some corrections. And if you had polished this and you just include enough to bring it till 350 words, which is the minimum requirement, just for the narrative, features that you do it, like the sudden twist and ending it on a cliffhanger, right? So you've used that prompt brilliantly, right? And that will really, it really takes the quality of your writing up, I would say, several levels, given
I don't know how to like elaborate the sentences and all in this certain.
I mean, you could just add some details in between, right? Now, let me first go through the corrections, and then maybe I can offer you some suggestions as to what you could include. 70 words is not a lot,
Yeah,
right? Let's just say it's 7 lines. So you want 7 lines of more story, right? Sort of peppered in between what you already written. There are some corrections, so maybe you'll have to add more because I might, well, I will be changing a few things, maybe, removing some bit. The first thing I noticed is you're flip-flopping between tenses, right? And so it's a narrative and you want to be in the past tense. So I had recently moved to Arizona. Over here, you can use a hyphen. I don't remember much about where I used to work or with whom I used to live. I had gotten a job within the first month of moving there. I was living with an old lady, and she always told me that she had found me outside the hospital. So I removed the comma. She had found me outside the hospital as a child, and how she always treated me like her own daughter. So I'm going to remove this line. And I'm going to add, but I wasn't her real daughter. She, so, excuse me, but I wasn't her real daughter. And a hyphen. She sometimes used to visit her. I never really spoke with her that much as she was more of an introverted person. You could say that, or she was quite an introvert. Whenever she visited us, okay, I'll let that be. I don't know why, but I felt sick in her presence. However, things were going okay. So that could be one paragraph. In fact, let's see. So that's your second paragraph from here. However, things were going smoothly and I was super happy in my life. One day, that lady brought an old rusty box home, right? Instead of saying it this way, brought home an old rusty box. She not told me not to open it and just promised. I just nodded and promised her I wouldn't. Whenever her daughter visited, okay, so what we can do over here, since that day, right? And you want to lowercase w. Whenever her daughter visited, so the two of them would go to the basement for several hours. In fact, like so this is how you could add detail, right? Both of them like, add to the story. Start be within what you already mentioned. So the two of them would go to the basement sometimes for several hours at a stretch. The lady asked me not to open. The lady asked me not to open the door unless they allowed me to. Okay. This continued for over a month, and right, so it's past tense, so you won't use now. There is a technique of using the present tense when you're writing about the past. It's called the historical present tense. But for that, what you need to do is you need to initially, uh, set the context that you're talking about. The past narrative by definition is that way, but it's just a style of writing that needs a lot of practice, right, for the historical present tense. And so it's just easier. It's doable, definitely, if you practice that way, but it's just easier if you do the whole thing in past tense. I began to feel a bit suspicious. So one day, let that be your third paragraph. This continued for over a month, and I began to feel a bit suspicious. So one day, I decided to finally go to the basement. I waited till that lady left home. In fact, left to meet one of her relatives. I finally gathered the courage and went in. I had gone numb after seeing what was there. There were the dead bodies of my parents and siblings. So remove this and the full stop and a photograph that was covered in blood. Change this to a full stop. I took it in my hands, comma, and when I saw the photograph, the memories came rushing back. And alright, so what you've done is you've put in an ellipsis, those three dots, and right, so an ellipsis is normally just three dots. So if you put three dots, that means it's one of the punctuations, and that means that the story will continue. It goes on, right? As again, you've used it as a cliffhanger, so that's okay. So you don't need like multiple dots going all the way across the line. Now again, right, even after all the editing, the cutting out and the addition, we are 316 words, and that includes the right this part. How much is it counted as? Right, 3 words. That's 313. Now, right, how can you include more of a story without having to spoil the ending that you have? Are you with me, Haram?
Yeah.
Right, so what you can do is perhaps you can talk about your daily routine. You can talk about what the old lady used to do. You could talk about maybe, right, a conversation that you had with the actual daughter of that lady, or maybe a conversation that lady and her daughter had in front of you, or something else that you found suspicious other than them going down, or maybe because you said I don't remember much, right? You can just say perhaps I've got faint memories, I don't remember the faces, right? But I remember so and so, and you can just like sprinkle in a few memories, right? I remember uh, having a sibling, or you could say I sometimes dream. In my dreams I sometimes see, right, my parents and siblings, right, younger or older, however many, right? So but I can't make out their faces, I can't hear their voices, and even the dreams are very blurry, and perhaps it's just my longing, though those aren't really memories, they're just my longing for knowing who my real family was or is. And so giving that sort of backstory with suspense and intrigue would help you develop the mystery, lead you to that real twist and cliffhanger, and also fulfill the requirement for the word count. So again, right, be at least at 350 words. If it's 350 words and it's of good quality, it qualifies for, a grade, a good grade, right? You will you will not be penalized for not writing the full length, not utilizing the full length. That's not how it is. Okay, so you can rewrite this with the corrections I've offered, and then include the details, perhaps something that I suggested, perhaps something that occurs to you, and try and make it go all the way. Also, right now, obviously we're using software over here, and it can take a look at exactly what has been done, like how many words there are. But when you're writing it on paper, you don't need to count each and every word. That is something you would want to do in the summary only, count each and every word. But for your directed writing and narrative, what you want is you can count the number of words in perhaps the first 4 or 5 lines, perhaps, and take an average. So the first line you've got maybe 11, the next you've got 12, and then you've got 10, and then 13. So in just 4 lines, and then you take an average, right? So 11 plus 10 plus 12 plus 13, and then divide by 4, and so that gives you an idea. And then you just count the number of lines, obviously leaving out these half line type of things, right? So obviously you're not going to count this as one full line with, for example, 11 words, because there aren't 11 words. And so you count the number of full lines, and right then you see how many of these half lines you have. You can perhaps say, okay, fine. So there are 3 half lines, and so I'm going to count them as one line in total, right? And see, and just multiply that by the average, and so you get an idea. You can approximate of how many words there are, and that's good enough, right? So when you're taking an approximation, you want that approximation to be obviously a bit higher than 350. So let's say you're 365, perhaps 365, 370, and so right, give or take, you can rest assured that you are within the limit, right? Because there's an approximation. If your approximation is coming to exactly 350, then you would be like, okay, fine. So is this 350? Am I falling short? And so you just want it to be a bit over, right? 370 works in that case, right? That's safe enough, I believe. So that's how you can do the word count. And yes, I'll return this to you. Anything you'd like to add, Haram? Any opinion, suggestion, any comment?
Not really. But yeah, I had one question. In like the second paragraph.
Uh,
But that wasn't her real daughter. She sometimes used to visit her. Like,
hmm. Yeah, what about it?
it would be better if we would like explain it a bit.
Well, that's up to you, right? So that's an area where you can elaborate the story,
Okay.
right? If you want to explain who her real daughter was or why you want the real daughter, and you already said that, like the old lady found you outside the hospital. So,
Yeah.
right, you so right, the real daughter used to visit sometimes. I never really spoke with her. She was an introverted person, right? And so, if you want to include some explanation about that real daughter, yeah, so that's one of the areas where you can add more to the story. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so I will return this to you. I liked your approach, right, and especially the ending, so that's good. And whom else do we have left? How much time do we have left? I felt I've spent, okay, Amariza's not here. Oh, this one's descriptive. How much time do we have? On the clock, we have 13 minutes. Let's see what I can do in 13 minutes. Interesting that he chose a descriptive. Unfortunate that he's not in class today. Write a description of a crowd placed before and during a sudden burst of heavy rain. So we have, let's zoom in first, and 399. Okay, that's good. Just a sec, please. All right, let's see. It was evening and the market was full of people. Everyone was moving around, so clearly punctuations are lacking throughout. Everyone was moving around, buying things and talking loudly. The sun was going down behind the tall shops, and the sky looked orange and purple. Lights from the stalls began to shine like tiny stars. The smell of fried food and corn floated. Oh, roasted corn floated in the warm air, mixed with the scent of dust and fruit. I could hear sellers shouting prices and people bargaining in excited voices. The place felt alive and busy, and the noise echoed from everywhere. Complete lack of punctuation, but yeah, good start. A man selling toys kept blowing his whistle again and again, and children laughed as they ran past him. A woman was arranging vegetables on a stall while the smell of grilled meat came from somewhere close. Cat walked between people's feet, hoping to find something to eat. The air was hot and sticky, and sweat rolled down my back, but the golden light of sunset made everything look beautiful. Even the fruits in the stall seemed to glow. Nice. Then the wind began to change. It became cooler and blew dust into the air, making people blink. The sky started turning gray, and clouds gathered above. The happy sound slowly faded as people looked up. One cold drop of rain fell on my hand, and then another, and suddenly it began pouring down. The whole market turned into a mess. People ran for shelter, and some slipped on the wet ground. Vendors tried to cover their goods with plastic sheets that flapped wildly in the wind. Everyone was shouting and laughing at the same time. The sound of rain hitting the metal roofs was so loud it felt like thunder. The smell of wet dust rose from the ground. Oh, by the way, there's a word for the smell of wet dust when it rains, and that word is petrichor. Petrichor. So, I mean, if you want to be specific with your vocabulary and use good vocabulary, you could say petrichor. Otherwise, if you just want to be more descriptive, you could say the smell of wet dust. Rose from the ground mixed with the scent of food. Lights flickered as water ran down the stalls. My shirt stuck to me and my shoes squished with every step, but it felt fresh and wild. The cool air touched my face and made me shiver, but I didn't want to move. After some time, the rain slowed to a soft drizzle. The sunset came back, weak but glowing. The whole market was shining with puddles that reflected the orange light. People slowly came back out smiling and talking. Again, the air felt clean and calm as if the storm had washed away the noise and heat of the day. That's a good description, right? And one thing I want to highlight over here is how he's focused on the various things that are happening in this market, right? He's not identified the market, the location, right? So you don't need a geographical location. You can just go like it was the market, right? What market was it? It doesn't matter. No one's going to check. It was the market, right? And so you're describing the market scene, and that way you could have technically anything you want in the market, right? If you're very specific about like a real market, even though the examiner is not going to come and check, and they're not checking you for factual accuracy, like, okay, fine. So I know this. If you're mentioning, for example, Sadr, right, or any other market in Karachi, and I know that place, I'm like, oh, this doesn't happen over there. It doesn't matter, right? Because again, I don't. It's not my job to check your factual accuracy. It's my job to check your writing as a piece of descriptive writing, right? But still, it's better if you keep it open-ended. So, right, how we talked about people's voices and the scents, and a woman arranging vegetables and a man selling toys and a cat. He's mentioned a cat, right? And then he switches to the sweat rolling down his back, and then how the sky changed and how the people reacted. So, right, how he's taken it is he's taken it obviously chronologically, the description, and he's also taken it spatially. He's not focusing on one way of doing descriptives is focusing on one sense at a time, and that's right. That's a very basic approach, and that's definitely not what is done. So I would have liked to appreciate him in person, but he's not here, unfortunately. What I will do very quickly is add some punctuation marks. full stop, another full stop, comma over here, full stop, full stop, comma, full stop, another full stop, comma, full stop, comma. I think I should stop saying that. Let's just do this quietly. Suggestion. Go with that. Right, so okay, I'm going to go over this right in later. In fact, can I just quickly breeze through this? Which seems okay. And the wind began to change. I want to have the hyphen over here. Right, a lowercase I. Almost done. Comma. It's not. Okay. And so with that, you obviously notice, right, punctuations make a lot of difference. A lot of difference into how your writing appears and how it's taken and how it's received. Okay, so we're done for the day. I will return this as well, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we will continue with our grammar review, right? So that's going to take a few classes, and once we're done with that, we will then come back to another set of past papers. All right. So see you guys next time, inshallah.
Hello.
Love is.